Now, the opening of the Pan-African Parliament sits today. It's the legislative body of the African Union and exercises oversight. Also has an advisory and consultative power which lasts for a period of 5 years. EFF leader Julius Malema is among 5 South African MPs who will be sworn in as members of the Pan-African Parliament. National Council of Provinces chairperson Thandi Modise is also expected to be sworn in. Well, Aldrin Sampear is inside the Pan-African Parliament, which is about to begin. It's in Midrand, the north of Johannesburg. Aldrin, let's cross over to you and find out what the latest is.
Well, certainly, in the next few minutes from now, the first session will kick off, and we'll just get quickly into this interview because the clerk has to rush off. Mr. VP Arawa joining us this morning. Let's just quickly speak about some of the fundamental aspects that will be focused on over the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks, the main things are, well, the opening ceremony today. It's a big event for us. We have the chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Moussa Faki Ahmad, as the guest of honor. We have elections in the next 2 weeks. Elections are another very big, very important aspect of the 2 weeks. We have elections every 3 years, and the elections are for the Bureau of the Pan-African Parliament. That's the president and the 4 vice presidents. We also have discussion by the honorable members of parliament for health, for the reforms that are going on in the African Union, and those are also major aspects.
Do you at all think that, considering as well that you have about 80 new MPs who will be sworn in today, that there would be a renewed vigor within this parliament to try and persuade all AU member states to ratify on this Malabo protocol, because that has been a contentious issue, eh?
And that has been a contentious issue, ratification of the revised protocol of the Pan-African Parliament. We are expecting to swear in 78 new members of parliament, and that is just under a third of the entire contingent of parliamentarians. It's arithmetically, it works out to 30.58%. So that's a very big impact in terms of renewal of the membership. As to whether that has an impact on ratification of the Malabo Protocol, I am not sure. I think there are other factors which would play a more influential role in revising the protocol than actually the membership of the parliamentarians themselves.
Because I guess that's the other thing. Some member states have made the argument that it almost seems as though that they're outsourcing their legislative power to, quote-unquote, a foreign legislative body.
That is true. I think that there's a lot of work that we need to do in clarifying the relationship between the legislative authority of the Pan-African Parliament and the national legislative authority. The Pan-African Parliament will only legislate on those matters that relate to integration of the continent, and those matters will be specified or instructed to the Pan-African Parliament by the member states themselves. But there is still a lot of communication that needs to be clarified. We appreciate and understand why nations would be apprehensive about a situation like that. So there's a lot of work going on to build consensus on the role, and also just to demonstrate that there is no conflict between the legislative authority of the Pan-African Parliament and the legislative authority of national parliaments.
Mr. Haro, I know that we have to let you go and let you continue with your job here at the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you so much for making time for us. In the next few minutes, that's when the opening session will start here. And as is indicated, it will be the AU Commission chairperson, Mr. Moussa, who will also give an opening remarks here at today's session. Also, we expect the former President former President Kgalema Motlanthe to also make some remarks, but this is only later in this week as they look around the issues around health across the continent. Former President Thabo Mbeki, as you remember, like a couple of years ago, I think back in 2015, was also here at the Pan-African Parliament, where he made where he delivered that report on illicit financial flows. And as we've been indicating throughout our coverage of the Pan-African Parliament, is that the problem is that some of these things that are being discussed here and some of the resolutions that are made here at the Pan-African Parliament are not implemented, because there are no penalties against the member states who do not implement some of the resolutions, because this is not a legislative body. And that's why the Malabo Protocol is such an important issue. And I guess with the new leadership being elected this week, there will be renewed discussions and renewed debates around how do you make sure that this legislative body has legislative powers and has more teeth.
Right, Aldrin, thank you very, very much for that update. So a big day at the Pan-African Parliament today taking place in Midrand. We'll keep you updated with all of the events that are taking place there.